Okay, hello and welcome everyone to another episode of the Masculinity Unmasked Podcast, the fortnightly conversation which delves deep into the issues impacting men today. We're here to have the conversations you might not be having elsewhere. Honest, open, sometimes uncomfortable, but always important. The title for this or today's episode is How Wearing Masks Affects Your Partner. And I'm very lucky to be joined by Mariquita Solis, who is a men's coach. So, Mariquita, thanks very much for joining me today. Do you want to start by sharing a little bit about your story and the work that you do?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me, Linda. I'm excited to be here. So, I feel like my story began with my self hatred and realizing how much I hated myself. And I was struggling to fit into society and try to follow the rules, the cultural rules as a young girl. And it didn't work out for me. I was jumping through hoops in relationships, trying to bend myself and twist myself into being someone I wasn't in order to attain this perfect relationship. And that fell through many, many, many times. And finally, I was just at the end of my rope and I said, I have to do something. I don't know what to do. So I got the book Self Compassion, and that began my journey back into connection with my core of my authentic self, who was that light inside of me that was always there, but that I had shut down. And so I studied coaching here in the Atlanta area with a gentleman, and that was wonderful. It was my first introduction. And then I thought, I want to work more with kind of the feminine element, just a little bit softer. So I studied with Claire Zammit with her. Now I can't, she just changed the name of the program, Institute for, let's see, the Women's Institute for Coaching, Leadership, and Training. So I studied with her, and that was life changing, the bonds that I made with women in that, and really learning about the feminine energy and how I could be soft, but yet I could be powerful, something that I had never learned before, right? So because society told me if I had feelings and emotions that was something to be looked down upon. So yes, so I learned quickly that this was not correct. And so I worked with women for a while. And as I grew, I began to see the wounded masculine showing up all in society and in my own personal relationships and people coming to me and telling me their hatred of men. And I thought, what is this hatred of men coming from? And so that was really when I thought something needs to shift. I really want to be an advocate for men because I know that men are not evil, horrible people. And I know they're just like me. And I want to discover how I can help them. So that's when I shifted into helping men heal their core wounds and really connecting to their feminine side and showing them that you can be like me. I'm not weak. I'm powerful, right? I'm powerful. I'm an empath and I feel everything, but I control my emotions. I regulate my emotions. Now, I don't control them by pushing them away. I control them by feeling them, acknowledging them, and growing from them. And so that's the shift that happened into my life.
I'm really excited and happy that you shared that shift within yourself because I think that there's a lot of women who might be going through that shift because high performing women definitely there is that masking that happens. And so it's really easy to identify with the masking that men actually go through at points in their lives. And so it's not necessarily a man or woman issue. It's just the way that we approach it might be slightly different, but yet there's some commonalities that we're going to get into today. And I think I want to start with this question to build the foundation to where we're going to go. But I would like to know, as a little girl, what were you taught about boys and men, and how did it affect your life in general?
Well, I was taught the cultural rules that we're all taught about boys and men, that they need to be strong and stoic and not show emotion, but they're also who I could depend on. But this backfired for me as a little girl because the men that I counted on when I had emotional problems, they couldn't connect to me. So I felt like, what's going on? I'm sharing my emotions. I'm hurt. I'm wounded, and I'm looking up to you because I've been taught you're my protector. and you're not paying attention and you're dismissing my emotions. So I felt very let down. And it was very confusing to me as a little girl and even as a young woman and later in life, expecting those strong men to support me, but then they're not even acknowledging my feelings.
That's a good point to be making there, that women do look to men to be the supporters and to be able to create the space that we can be vulnerable. And when that doesn't happen, that is confusing based on the upbringing that you had and even the upbringing as far as how society looks at the role of men over the years. I was actually having a conversation earlier today about how men are looked to as the protectors, and actually went to the place where we were discussing how women in general kind of look for that man that will do anything and all to protect his family. Even if, in the olden days, that meant you might actually go to war, or you might actually kill someone in order to be in that place where you're defending your name, your family, and all of that. And so we don't really have that anymore. In those terms, which is a good thing that we're not needing to defend in quite that way. But it does cause some ambiguity, certainly in relationships as they're built on that principle. So would you say that do you think that men even know when they're wearing a mask? Or do you feel like it's become so normal that it's more of like who they are, and they have no awareness around it, that they're doing that?
I think that they start to build the mask when they're so young. Studies, research show that when they're 3 and 4 years old, they start putting that mask on, and this is when that subconscious mind is being developed, and all the things we learn. It's just part of who we are, and we're accepting this is the way life is. So I don't think they're aware of it. It's become this is. I mean, it's a system. This a system of shutting down feelings, and this is who I am. I'm someone with. I've heard people tell me I don't have any feelings, right? And that's absolutely not true. That men do have feelings. They've been taught to shut them down, but they do believe that that's who they are, and they can't see that I'm wearing a mask. And the mask is something they learned. They had to learn that as a little boy, and that was a great coping mechanism at that point in their life to build connections, because research shows that they were wanting to build connections with little boys and men. And in order to do that, they had to have this facade, but it does not serve them in the way that they were taught that it does. I mean, it disconnects from themselves and from others.
You're definitely on point there, that it is a disservice to themselves and others. And so I also want to ask you, in your coaching experience, what have you found has been underneath the mask? Has it been primarily fear, shame, or has it been more of a deep belief that expressing a core wound will lead to like rejection, or even just putting somebody down, I guess?
I think it's all of those, definitely. I think shame is so huge. When they're little boys, they're taught you're not good enough, right? You're not good enough being who you are. You have to start behaving differently because we're not going to accept you. And if you show weakness, that's the opposite of being a man, right? And so little boys have feelings, right? And if they do cry and someone makes fun of them, or even as men, if they show emotions and then women use it against them or people use it against them, I mean, that's causes this tremendous amounts of shame, and I'm not a real man. And that's going back to the core wound as a little boy. And it's just monumental, the pressure that men are under, and the way that this is, again, it's something that they had to choose to survive, but it's denying who they are. So it's like in the same with women too. It's almost like society wants us all to be ashamed instead of acknowledging who we are. We're all fighting shame of society's rules, right? Am I pretty enough? Am I skinny enough? Right? Is my hair perfect enough? Right? And are the men tough enough? Are they strong enough? Right? Do they have enough muscles? Right? And so it's like, my gosh, who can ever measure up to that?
Well, so I was just gonna say, as you're saying this, I mean, it's one thing for society to give all of this messaging, but you can be your friends and family. And the person that I see as being the culprit in this is ourselves. We set ourselves up for these standards that we can't uphold them either. And so that's, I think, where the shame ultimately comes is in self. And so I think that the work that needs to come out is really the what you had described before is the authenticity over performance. So everything that we're doing to put a certain face out in the world, and especially like we're under stress or grief or any of those things, then we're doing a lot of performing to keep up an appearance rather than actually saying what's going on and including, hey, I need help, throwing up the flag for that. And you spoke to it early on in our interview here about that, even as a woman, that if you're soft, then you're not strong. And I'm thinking some of the strongest women do have that softer edge to them, but that's not what's celebrated near often enough, I don't think. And so there's more work to do in that area for sure. And where I'd like to move us next in the interview is really about when you've got two people that come together. So when a partner shows up unmasked. Okay, let's say you have that person, and then you've got another partner, the other partner as masked. What really happens in that dynamic when or maybe you've got two people that are masked? Can you give me a little bit of compare contrast about what you see are the disadvantages, of course, to being masked, and then things that can come through that you wouldn't necessarily see until you actually take off the mask?
Yeah, I think the mask is about control. So if you're in a relationship, if you've got two people wearing masks, first of all, it's not authentic. So you can only rise up to a certain level, and everyone's trying to control, right? And it's also about transactions, right? I'm going to do this, and then you're going to do this, and if I'm feeling threatened, I'm going to control you by doing this, right? And how does this even work? And this is not authentic. It's not the flow. I mean, love in a relationship is an organic process. It can't be controlled. There can't be rules for love. I mean, there can be, and it's not gonna create this the tremendous thing, that this tremendous essence of true authentic love. Can work for certain people a superficial level, and some people just want that, where two people are wearing masks and they only want a superficial level, and they want to have, come in and do their thing, and do their hobbies and everything, but never open up to a deeper level of knowing that person. And I've had people say, I've never been able to have a deep conversation with my partner. And it really hurts my heart to hear that. They're in marriages for years. I know plenty of people that are married for years that have not had a conversation of depth and safety with their partner. And that is what is, I mean, it's beyond anything you can imagine when you are in a relationship where two people are not wearing masks and you have created a safe space. And it's about giving without keeping score, giving without charts. It's about the freedom to love and be expressive. And when you're loving from that level of authenticity, it's limitless and boundless. And it's something so powerful that it can't be controlled. Whereas the superficial is all about control and transactions. So it's night and day. One is very flat and fake, and the other is just like this warm sunshine and this beautiful green earth.
I love the way that you've unpacked that, and I agree with you completely. And you're right that some people, when they're in relationships, they may want to keep it at that superficial level, and that's because they've been conditioned or had an experience where the vulnerability ended up costing them. And so it cost them their safety, it cost them their identity, it cost them being hurt, all of these things. And so they're reluctant to want to ever open up in that level. And so it takes a huge lift to be able to open them up to receive what you just were describing about how in an area where two people are very authentic, yes, expression will come through, vulnerability will happen, and it'll go to such depths. And the only way that can happen, I guess in some ways, to learn or unlearn in some cases how to be expressive and know how to put the boundaries into place about what you want and don't want, and to talk about what good looks like and how you like to communicate. And so I think people miss the mark because they don't know how to communicate what they want and need. So, how is the other person going to do that? So, again, you go back to you've got two people wearing a mask at that superficial level to, in their minds, keep things safe by not putting themselves in a place where things could go poorly. And anyone who's experienced the second kind, the authentic love, you don't want the other one. There's once you move into that authentic love without all the conditions, without all the control, and it feels, I mean, in your body. I mean, you can feel the difference. It's like, how do we help our clients to, whether they're men or women, to get to that place where they can feel into the relationship and no longer feel like they have to perform? Because I think that when you think of mass, it isn't necessarily not telling people who you are and being somebody else. To me, a mask is what you're behind because you are not ready to let everyone see who you are. The good parts that, that's always nice to let people see. But when we are feeling less than or not accomplished or, not as far along in life as we'd want to go, or the fact that, we need some help with something, that's where the masking becomes difficult to want to get to drop the mask and move to the other side. So I'm curious because I'm thinking that women are known for being able to hold space for men. And the work that you and I both do as coaches for men, that's what we do. But our listeners might be wondering, well, how do you hold the space and not go into that motherly role where you're trying to fix or you're trying to, in some ways, kind of give that nudge to go in a different direction? Because we all know that when we see something going well and we verbally recognize, hey, it was really great when you express this need for needing some help. That's one thing. But if we, flip it around and when we think we're holding space and we end up saying things like, well, it's obvious you should, take this step and go do it. Step up and go do it. You can see the difference between the two. One acknowledges the effort. The other one is like, yes, you can be hard. You know what to do. So man up and go do it. That's what's being said in the words. I didn't use those words, but that's what's happening when you put it that way. And so it's like, okay, so you don't want to be too hard around the edges because we're trying to get to softness. And at the same time, we want to accept our partner for who they are already. That's rule or basis, 101 is we accept our partners that we've chosen, and it's not our job or our duty or maybe even our desire to want to change them and have them, play a different role. Because I think that's what people do sometimes. They paint a role they want someone to play, and that happens on both sides. So a lot around that. Would you mind unpacking it for me?
Yeah, I think that first of all, there has to be a safe space. And I, as a woman or as a partner, have to be confident in myself to know that I'm here to support. I'm not here to fix anyone. Nobody needs to be fixed. And I'm not playing God where I'm going to force you or, manipulate you into your growth process. Everyone has a growth process. And I'm here to talk to you and ask you, how can I be of support to you in this process? And it's not up to me to get involved in your growth journey because that's taking away your full potential because you're learning, right? This is about your learning, not about me mothering you and taking away your opportunity to learn because that's what it is. We all have opportunities to learn and that's what a relationship is, growing together. And I'm standing with you here and I'm a sounding board for you. If you need it, I'm here to support you. But I am confident in you. I know you've got this, right? I believe in you. I'm here with you. So if you need to borrow some confidence from me one day, if you're feeling down, I'm here to give it to you. Just like I know you've done the same and you'll do the same for me. And I'm so glad that we have this interdependent relationship where we can support each other right? And we're not independent and we're not codependent. We're supporting dependent. So, and that's the difference from mothering and codependence and all these qualities that stifle someone's growth. It's not I'm not gonna take your opportunity to grow. I'm going to celebrate your growth journey.
I love the way that you've just painted that because you're right. It's really an exchange where you're supporting the growth of another person, and the only way to get to growth is through learning. And so we support the learning, the growth happens, and then in reverse it also happens. And we make it sound so easy, but it really is if you follow that principle that you come into a relationship as a whole person with another whole person, and each person is an unfinished model or sculpture, however you want to look at it. And when we can see ourselves as being supportive of somebody else's journey, but not the guide of the journey, because we only can go on our journey ourselves, but we can walk alongside someone. I think that's a great takeaway that our listeners really could grab onto. That illustrative example that you gave, it was very vivid to me. Do you have any other takeaways that our listeners should be like, I don't know, grabbing onto that you can think of that you'd like to
Well,
share?
it's come up for me as people saying they're afraid to be authentic and they've been hurt in the past. They don't want to be authentic. They don't want to show who they really are. And yeah, it can be scary, and it's very also important to know who you're speaking with, right? And if they are open to that, right? And to surround yourself to make sure to get people that are authentic and that you can be in a safe space with people that are non-judgmental. And I think if you want to develop your feelings, if you're afraid to express your feelings or be authentic, I would just start with something very simple, like when people say, how are you doing today? Okay, so the typical response is, "Oh, I'm doing fine. I'm doing good," you know. Instead of saying that typical response, which is very flat, to actually say what you mean, like, "Well, I was a little bit sleepy before we got on here." Or, my knee is hurting from this, or really speak for what about something that is authentic in your life. Now that you don't have to share everything, but just start with a small thing. And the more you do this and the more you're in tune with your feelings when people ask, the more this is going to open you up to being more authentic and expressing who you are. You're connecting, you're aware now, right? This is bringing awareness, a different kind of thinking. So that's one way. Also, just looking, and this is one thing I would always work with my women clients is to say, what do I need? What am I feeling? What am I feeling now in my heart? I feel like, oh my gosh, I'm so overwhelmed. Well, what's really behind that? Maybe I feel sad and maybe I feel exhausted. And what is it that I need? Ask yourself, what am I feeling and what do I need?
I love that response to what do I need? That's a really easy question to put in your back pocket. And I would also add that when you're looking for that safe community of people to surround yourself with, be discerning because not everybody is a safe space. So it's like learning to know what is and what isn't. And the only way you're going to know what's safe for you is to know what your core values are. So what you value in a safe space, ask yourself, what do I value in a safe place? What needs to be present in the safe place? And then taking what you have said, what do I need? That really wraps it up. So it's really a three-step process. It's defining and knowing your core values, then discerning it what a safe place is and is not, and then asking yourself, what do I need in order for it to occur or be present?
Yeah, and it all goes back to knowing yourself. The more you know yourself, the more you love yourself, the more you're going to be able to build authentic relationships with other people and to be able to take care of yourself, to be an advocate for yourself. If I'm sharing something with someone and they put up a wall or they make fun of me right away, that's okay. I've recognized it, right? And I'm able to console myself and say, "Hey, it's okay." Right? I've got this. This person wasn't ready, and that's okay. It's not about me. It's about where they are. And that took me forever to get to that space where I can be an advocate for myself and where I am able to stand in my own power. That's because as a child, I was taught, I was told by um, figures in my life, family figures that said, you'll never amount to anything. So I had to just, this never amount to anything going in the back of my mind, you'll never amount to anything. And then I finally had to say, wait, I'm not going to believe that. I'm going to believe in myself. And that's where it all comes down to believing in yourself first and noticing your feelings and what you need. And like you said, Linda, core values. What is important to you? And I'm not talking about hobbies, I'm talking about depth of soul here.
Yes, there is a significant difference between hobbies and depth of soul, for sure. So I have one more question for you. If authenticity is the new definition of strength, which we both alluded to, what's one way men can start today to build their vulnerability, courage, and step out of the silence?
One way that men can do that is to find other men or go to find a men's group. When there are men's group, you have one, Linda, and we know that it's safe, right? Where you can ask about the group, right? What's the structure of the group? And you want to hear everything is confidential here. You want that support. We cannot operate independently. We need others on our healing journey, right? We need to know, which this is very true. I'm not the only one going through this, right? Other men are going through this. Other women are going through this, feeling shame, feeling like they have to hide and can't show themselves. So find a supportive community and get out there. And if you're afraid today, know that it's okay. You can be afraid, but you can also act with courage, right? I'm afraid a lot of times, but I'm also courageous. So don't feel like fear is something that's negative. Fear can drive you to make decisions to advocate for your core being.
Yes, fear is very much a driver. So I guess what the difference, just flat out fear and what you're describing as courage is, be afraid of something. That's okay. Acknowledge it, name it. But then, like, okay, I'm going to be courageous and I'm going to go to this new men's group and I'm going to like sit with these other guys and I'm going to like, find out what's going on in their world and maybe, they're going through the same thing that I am, or maybe they are, building something and they don't know all the steps to get there. And maybe they're going to share what they've done so far. And maybe I've, that man that's gone on the journey that they've gone on and a little bit further ahead and can reflect back the wins that they achieved and share some of the lessons learned. And so what you have is this circle of men that can speak to a lot of different things, and they're no longer by themselves. They're finding connection, and through connection is how we get courageous. Connection is how we heal, and connection is how we just enjoy life wholeheartedly in the first place.
You're right. All right, let's drop the I'm independent and let's move together to unity.
Yes, moving together through unity is the path that can get us, quicker and further. You go together. And so I really appreciate the amount of depth that we were able to go to in a short amount of time. I know that we have just scratched the surface. And I really want to thank you very much, Mariquita, for delving into all these threads of the topic. It's been great to hear your thoughts and opinions and perspectives. And thanks also to everyone for listening. Hopefully you found the conversation useful. And Mariquita, if people would like to get a hold of you, what is the best way?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn and my email is info@uncaged-heart.com. I mean, really, you can just Google my name. I'm out there everywhere. So yeah, and I would love to invite you all to come and chat with me. And it's time to break out and break free to unlimited potential and really live that authentic life and be who you're meant to be. And I'll be standing with you. So please, I really invite you to reach out to me. And thank you, Linda. This has been wonderful. I love your insight and your wisdom and everything you're doing for men on your journey.
Thank you for that acknowledgement. I appreciate that. So if you resonate with this topic or anything we've shared today, or you have any ideas on things you'd like us to talk about in the future, please do get in touch. As always, we love to hear from you. Our details are in the show notes. That's it from me. Until next time, take care, everyone.
Thank you.